Hey guys, I hope you're hungry. Welcome back to Full Incense and War Stories. My name is Jericho and I'm joined by TheIceMann.
Hello.
So, today's topic of discussion is Star Wars Episode 1, and this is going to be the beginning of a recurring series in War Stories where we just talk about each of the Star Wars movies in turn. So, to start off with, Episode 1 has either the very worst or one of the worst reputations amongst Star Wars movies. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, absolutely.
But
Definitely.
we both feel that it's not really deserved. I would say it's probably my least favorite or second least favorite, but I still love it, and not just because it's a Star Wars movie.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first Star Wars movie I ever saw. I was not a fan. Like, it came out when I was 11 years old, 10 or 11. First movie I ever saw in theaters. Star Wars movie. So, like, to me, this is what Star Wars is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had already seen the other three on tape, because I was also 9 or 10 at the time, 3 or 4 at the time it came out, and but this was also the first one I saw in theater. So especially as a kid, I really loved it and held it just as much in regard with the other movies. And now when I look back, I don't like it as much, but it's still wonderful. I still completely love it. So what are some of the things that you really like about Episode 1?
Just, I like the overall feel, like the look and feel of the prequels.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's incredibly vague. It doesn't help at all. But just think about what the prequels kind of feel like, and I think Episode 1 especially just completely embodies that. And I mean, it really is an incredible story when you break it down. I mean, you make all the arguments you want for the bad CGI, the acting, etc. The story, it's incredible, and it's seen throughout all of history of literature and movies in the past. You know, the archetypal hero boy, farm boy, which he's not a farm boy, but Anakin.
Right.
Just like Luke, forced to leave his home. The mentor. I don't know. I thoroughly enjoy the story.
Just that I agree that the feel and look of the movie is one of the things that it does the best, because it definitely from the first shot feels exactly like a Star Wars movie. It feels like it belongs and it's part of it, but it also makes its own identity through different tech and different alien species and different planets. But even when they're on Tatooine, it's still, you can tell that things are a little bit different in this time frame than where it was before.
I love the scenes on Tatooine, and going back and watching it, when I think of the movie in my head, Tatooine, it's kind of just like a scene or two. Like, it's just one of their stops along the way. They're in Tatooine for a really long time.
Yeah, it's like half the movie almost.
It really is. They start right away, which to me, again, when I think about it, I feel like it starts in the middle of the movie. But no, it starts about 25, 30 minutes in. They're on Tatooine. And they're there for almost an hour.
Right.
That's a lot of movie, and I'm not complaining at all. I like it a lot. It makes me think of Episode 4.
I really like the lightsaber battle between Qui-Gon and Darth Maul on Tatooine, as short as it is. I like because Darth Maul is so scary, and it's just out of nowhere. All of a sudden, there's this crazy lightsaber fight going on, and Qui-Gon is completely off his guard and barely even escapes with his life.
Think of how Qui-Gon feels. Like, we all know it's coming because we know every movie's going to have a lightsaber fight. But think of how he feels. Just the Sith have been gone for 1,000 years.
Mm-hmm. You're like, whoa!
Kind of saber to saber fighting he's ever done, if he has done any, has just been training at the temple.
Right. Who's this Joker?
Yeah.
Some other really great stuff on Tatooine. I've always loved the pod race. It's easily one of my favorite sequences in the entire prequel trilogy, or in any of the 6 movies.
No, absolutely.
It's one of my favorites. Because
that's like, I feel like that if all the CGI in the prequels had been that good, I don't think people would have nearly as big of a problem
Yeah.
That was just sensational.
And it still looks good. It holds up a lot better than a lot of the other things because it feels more real. Because the pod racers, you can sort of see how they look like, you know, they're machines. Like they make sense to your eyes. Like it's not some crazy alien that now just looks like a puppet or looks like, you know, nothing.
Right.
Like Jar Jar, you know, he never looked realistic or believable, and now that you can tell how bad the CGI is and how poorly it's aged, you know, he looks all the worse. But the pod racers are machines, so they're completely believable because you can see how they're supposed to work.
I love the sound of them too. I think especially the Sebulba.
Yeah,
it's very realistic.
So Sebulba, we've already mentioned Sebulba and Darth Maul, who are two of the, you know, big antagonists in the movie. And I think Episode 1 does a good job of having a lot of memorable villains. Like Watto is kind of like a middling villain. He's a lot like I can't remember his name. 50 portions from the Unkar Plutt, where he's not really evil. I mean, he keeps slaves, so I guess he's pretty bad. But I mean, he lets Anakin go. Like he could be a lot worse.
Yep. I mean, that's just the environment that he lives in.
And Sebulba is really cool and an awesome design. Then you have, of course, Darth Maul and Sidious are the real antagonists.
I love it in I think it's only in the Blu-ray re-release, but every scene that Sidious has, they're playing that Return of the Jedi throne room Gregorian chant,
right?
Which is one of my favorites. I love it, and now to see it in Episode 1, I love a lot of the changes that they make in the re-releases of both trilogies because I think it connects them both well. Or more, anyway.
Yeah, when they do things to make them stylistically appear closer to each other, all it does is just make it a more cohesive story. Yeah, I definitely, both of us, in addition to, you know, really liking the prequels, we generally agree with many of the changes that George Lucas has made to the movies.
I mean, I can totally get why people don't. I'm sorry if I'm coming off as defensive. I always feel like I have to defend myself when I'm talking about how much I love the prequels. I mean, people are just going to love what they want to love, but I just blindly hate them because, oh my god, a lot of CGI, I think, is wrong.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, you can hate what you want to hate, but to just out of hand have no patience for it just because you don't like Jar Jar is pretty stupid, and you miss out on the best lightsaber duel in the franchise, some of the best music in the franchise, some of the best action scenes in the franchise. Like, there's a lot in Episode 1 that is well worth the price of entry. So last year, what happened?
I just jumped into the lava.
Oh no! Why would you do that? So last year, I watched through the entire saga in what's called the machete cut, named after its creator. So basically, the idea is you watch Episode 4, then Episode 5, then you go back and watch 2, 3, and 6. That cuts out Episode 1 entirely, but as it happens, a lot of the stuff, like the characters and important story beats and stuff of Episode 1. Like, everything that matters in Episode 1 is reintroduced in Episode 2. Like, matters in terms of mattering long-term to the story. But I still missed Episode 1. Like that's true. I guess you don't really, quote-unquote, need it to get across the story of Anakin, because he can just be, you know, a hot-headed Jedi in Episode 2, and that tells you all you need to know about his past. But I want to know, and I want to see it.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole point of the prequels, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
If it's that argument solely, then none of the prequels are needed. You know what I mean? And I don't know if I agree necessarily that you don't need it. I mean, I think it does a really good job of setting up the rest. You know, just tonally and Darth Vader's hurting me really bad. He's a bad guy.
He's so mean.
I don't like him.
Somebody should do something about him.
I think it sets up the politics of the prequels, which I know a lot of people have a problem with, but I actually enjoy. I like seeing that a different side to the galaxy. Maybe we spent a little too much time on it.
I mean, war is...
who's to say?
I mean, war is conducted in, boardrooms and Senate hearings and debates just as much as it is on battlefields. That's just how war is in the real world. So I really like and respect that that's a big part of it in the prequel movies.
Yeah, I mean, you can't just have wars for no reason. You gotta see why.
Yeah, why are they fighting? Like, why do average citizens care? Like, why is this being allowed to happen? Because it's just context. Oh, look at that triple puppy on video.
Help us all.
Okay, we're back. I wanted to just cut until we could find another match. This is Cargo, so we're both going to do very poorly. It's one of our least favorite match types, but we'll see what we can do with it. Okay, so we've discussed a lot of the things we like about episode 1. Let's talk about some things that we don't like as much. So, I mean, and a lot of these are really obvious that have been said by all sorts of people for years since the movie has come out. But I don't like Jar Jar very much. I don't think he serves a purpose. I could do a whole episode about my opinions on comic relief characters, that they're never needed and they just don't come off well, and the story, it would make for a better story if you just have them come to buy their comedy organically. And I know, it's not so easy to write a character like that, and of course that's the idea, but Jar Jar is really cringeworthy. He feels really toyetic, which is to say, made to sell toys by being, a funny design. And when I go back and watch it, it does hurt the movie for me.
Yeah, I get it, and I completely agree. I will say Jar Jar was not for us.
Yeah, 100% true. But even as a kid, though, when I first saw, the movie came out in 1999, in May, so I would have just turned 10. No, just turned 11. No, 10. And I didn't like him then either, and I feel like that was pretty close to the target range. Maybe it would skew even a little bit younger. I would freely admit that, but I never thought Jar Jar was funny or cool. Like, I never wanted to be Jar Jar. I wanted to be Obi-Wan, So yeah. I just feel like it was a big, just not understanding the audience and a big missed opportunity.
Agreed.
So another thing that I didn't really like about episode 1, I feel that, I don't know, the way, I don't know, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, you kind of don't, I love Qui-Gon so much, and I love Obi-Wan, and I love their interactions with each other, but I wonder if it wouldn't have been cleaner if it was just only Obi-Wan, and he was already a master looking for an apprentice. Because then Qui-Gon Obi-Wan just seems like, well, is his master's dying wish? I guess I'm going to, but he didn't even like Anakin. He thought it was dangerous and he didn't even want to.
That's the thing I was going to bring up later. Like, I don't like that Obi-Wan was like the brat that he was, essentially, for lack of a better term. Like, and then, Qui-Gon's dead. Okay, I'm going to change now.
Yeah, no wonder the training went badly. You didn't even want to do it. Like, choosing a Padawan in a lot of the expanded universe material, it's like it's a huge deal. Like, just choosing an apprentice in a trade in real life, like, it's not nothing. So he wouldn't just, if he doesn't even like him, I don't know. So that, to me, is weak. I don't like that they introduced great characters in Qui-Gon and Darth Maul just to have them both die. Although Darth Maul, of course, was shown to survive in the Clone Wars show and now in Rebels as well. And it continued an annoying trend that we'll talk about in our other prequel episodes, like Jango Fett, and Dooku basically each had one movie and did lots of cool stuff, but they just died because, how they can't really introduce characters in prequels, because if they're that important, why aren't they around later? So they have to die.
Right. Yeah. I never actually given that much thought. That's really true. It's a good point.
But I'm glad to see them while they're there. It's just kind of unfortunate. Like it sort of feels like the prequels were not. Like, when you look at some of the ways that Harry Potter has done, or I haven't watched or read a lot of it, but Game of Thrones I've heard has done like this too. Like, you can see, like, as you watch later stuff, you can see how it was all thought of from the beginning. Like, the universe was fully formed in their minds before they started.
Right.
Like, J.K. Rowling likes to tell the story that she wrote the last chapter of Deathly Hallows like a long, long time before the movie came out. Like, she knew that was where she was going all along.
Yeah.
The prequels doesn't have that feel to me, because why not just have Dooku be his apprentice from episode 1? What difference does it make? And just have him escape Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just to have more characters and sell more toys. Like, it's possible. I don't want to accuse them of that, because I don't know. And I mean, surely they don't think people are going to buy a Christopher Lee action figure, besides me alone. But
I want one.
But I don't know. It just seems like the story threads were not all in place like they could have been or should have been.
I will say, George Lucas's storytelling abilities have diminished somewhat.
Yeah.
As much as I enjoy the prequels and like the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, Indiana Jones, like they're not the old ones, at least as far as script writing.
I think it's time we inform 20th Century Fox that my ability to screenwrite has diminished. Only the fans know of our weakness.
Who just shot me?
The devil.
Apparently in this game you can just die.
You can just die.
Nobody is around. It's weird how often that happens to me.
I've been using the shock blaster because I need it for the HUT contract, and it seems like the damage is way down. I remember when we used to be trying it, like we would shoot people and smooth in the face and it would kill them. Like, that would be it. But now it's like taking 2 or 3 shots. So what are something, do you have anything that you'd like to bring up as something you don't like as much about episode 1?
Maybe just like a few little gripes. I mean, it's nothing real big. You know how when the Amidala is talking to the Trade Federation at the beginning on the screen?
We will see. Yeah.
Where was that technology? You know, I know that the originals were made in the 70s and they had 70s technology, but that's 30 years after what's going on my screen.
Yeah, you're telling me the Empire, when they could have beautiful reflecting pool mirrors, has like scuzzy episode 5 Imperial commanders on holograms. Yeah, that's totally true. And that
thing we won't get too into it because this is about the prequels, but like one thing I like about episode 7 and even seeing the trailer of Rogue One, which we discussed on this show, is they're using like the technology that they had when they were making the movies before. I don't mean the filmmakers, I mean the characters in the movies are using that technology. Like, things haven't just gotten better just because movie making technology has improved since then.
And yeah, of course. And to their credit, I mean, it's a lot easier to have the technology look better now that it's in the future than to reverse engineer it.
Right.
But yeah, there's a lot of times, and especially in little details too. This, you know, again, this is going out of order, but like in episode 2, when they're like in the Lars homestead, like it's supposed to look newer than it does in episode 4, but it just doesn't make sense. And like, so nobody wants to use a double-sided lightsaber, but Darth Maul. No one. And then like they try to do it with like the designs of some of the ships. Like they have some of the ships look kind of like TIE fighters and some look kind of like X-wings. Yeah. But it just, I don't know. It feels like, I don't know, too little, too late, and just not enough of an impact. Anything else about episode 1 that you thought was maybe a missed opportunity or something you didn't care for as much?
No, those are just little gripes.
Yeah, like on the whole, I mean, I really like it. I probably like it more than episode 2. Those two really go back and forth. My favorite is really closely contested, and my least favorite is closely contested. But I mean, my least favorite Star Wars movie. I still like, you know, well more than most other regular movies just by virtue of being a Star Wars movie. But that's not the only thing it has going for it, because Episode 1 sets the stage for the prequel trilogy, and despite what other people will tell you, especially on the internet, the prequel trilogy is great and has a lot to offer. Especially as we get into the better parts of Episode 2 and Episode 3, which is one of my very favorites of the whole franchise.
Yep.
So I guess that will wrap it up for our Episode 1 discussion. I'm sure in later, I keep saying like episodes to describe the show too, but I mean, there's no other word for it. In later episodes, I'm sure we'll go back and mention things we forgot, but that's basically the idea. So these should be, I don't think it'll be every single war story for the next, as we go over every Star Wars movie, because I might have other stuff, you know, here or there to break it up somewhat, but Iceman and I will be going over all 6 Star Wars movies over the coming weeks, so make sure you subscribe and don't miss an episode of War Stories every Tuesday and Thursday, where we'll be talking about all things Star Wars. Thank you very much to Iceman for joining me, and that'll wrap it up for us today. I don't know about you guys, but we're full.